For over 150 years, 5 generations of the Woodruff family have serviced the South Jersey community's fuel energy needs. In this 3-part series, Bob Woodruff Sr. shares with Meg the history of the Woodruff family and the Woodruff Energy Company. Meg and Bob also touch on the long-standing tradition in the Woodruff family of service to the community and his love and support for the arts. Enjoy this episode of the Bridgeton Beacon.
Welcome back to the Bridgeton Beacon. Today I am interviewing Bob Woodruff, and Bob's here to speak with us about the history of Woodruff Energy, about his experiences with Rotary, about Bridgeton Symphony, which is now Bay Atlantic Symphony. So there's a whole lot of fun things that Bob and I are going to speak about today. I had the pleasure of hearing Bob talk about Rotary at a Rotary meeting a few weeks ago, and I couldn't wait to invite him on the show, and he was as gracious as ever. So Bob, welcome. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to join us.
Oh, thank you. I'm very happy to be here, and I'll be very happy to talk a little bit. I don't want to brag or anything like that, but
brag away. This is the time and place to do it.
Well, that's great. I'm Bob Woodruff Sr. I have a son, Bob Woodruff Jr., and I have a grandson, Bob Woodruff III. My son is currently the president of Woodruff Energy. My grandson is a junior at James Madison University, and he intends to come back to the company, which will be the 6th generation, direct generation of a Woodruff involved with Woodruff Energy. But I probably ought to go back a little bit, maybe a little bit of family history. I traced our family back to England, to a small little town called Fordwich, which is near Canterbury in southeastern England. And I go back to 1485, and we follow the family. They were farmers up until about 1638, in fact, exactly 1638, at which time there was a revolution going on in England, and my ancestor, who was Thomas Woodruff, John Woodruff, was the town treasurer of this little town of Fordwich, which happened to be right on the borderline between the two revolutionary forces. And the king's people came into the town, as well as Cromwell's group, and they both wanted the town treasury. So the long and short story of it all is, the next we know, John Woodruff and his family are on a boat leaving England and heading to Massachusetts, where they arrived in Lynn, Massachusetts in 1638. And so we don't know what happened in between, except we do know that they're in the country. They moved to Southampton, Long Island for 100 years, then moved down to Deerfield, which is a sort of a general term, but in those days there was only one county there, that was Salem County. So they settled in that area and settled in where my family farm is right now, which is in Upper Deerfield. And they settled there. The first deed I have there is 1752, but we still own about 300 acres of ground there. Now, the history of Woodruff Energy really starts in 1869, when my great-grandfather, who was also a John Woodruff, and of all things Robert Woodruff, seem to be common names throughout the generations.
Good name.
But my great-grandfather was involved with Charles Landis, who founded Vineland, and they, along with several other investors, built the railroad between Bridgeton and Vineland, which eventually went all the way up to New York, and it went right through our family farm, so that my father was one of the real beginners of the railroad in the area, as well as he was able to get a produce shipping operation at that location on our farm, and as a sideline to do work in the winter because he was a farmer, he started selling coal, which is the beginning of Woodruff Energy. At that time, it was just called I'm not even sure what it was called, but a little later on, it was Warren Woodruff and Son. Warren was my grandfather, and my dad, George Woodruff, who some of the older people would remember, was really the big developer of Woodruff Energy between about 1920 until he died in 1969. At that point, my brother, Alan Woodruff, who many people also know, he was very active out in the township. He was on the school board out at Seabrook for 20 or 30 years. My dad was also mayor of Upper Deerfield Township. That's George Woodruff for a number of years. And so that by the time that my dad died, my brother and I took over running of Woodruff Energy in 1969 and operated it jointly together until about 2005, at which time my son, Bob Jr., and I bought out my brother's interest in the company, and now he and I are the co-owners of the company. I'm retired. At this point, I'm 85 years old, and Bob runs the company, and it has expanded a great deal over the years, and I won't get into that unless there's questions about that part of it. So
that's fascinating history. How did you go about tracing your family back to the really the 15th century? How did you do that?
Well, I was very fortunate to do for two things. One is my father had traced the family as far back as 1738 when they arrived in this country, and then someone, a relative of the family from Long Island, had gotten in touch with us, and I was able to get a book, which is a hardback book which was printed in 1909, which has a complete family history all the way back to 1485. It's a wonderful book, and it even has some drawings of the original house that our family lived in on Long Island, which is no longer there. But it's really fascinating history, and it's just fun to know about it. And,
sure, I think it's neat to hear that your family in England were farmers, and that when they landed in Deerfield, were farmers or had a shipping operation, a produce shipping operation out of the family farm. And I was reading the website for Woodruff Energy, and it has a little bit of the history. And I love the first line. It says, normally cabbages, carrots, and coal don't go together, but in the Woodruff family, that's the foundation of the business that is now Woodruff Energy. I love that. I mean, and we've talked about farming in the Bridgeton area community and how important it is to the area. And it sounds like your family, as we've talked about on other shows with other guests, took advantage of an opportunity to get into the coal business, and now here it is. 53? Is that my math right? 153 years since Woodruff Energy has been serving the customer, serving the people in the community. So that's really fantastic. Now, are you still part of the operations, or have you turned all that over to Bob Jr.?
Everything is over to Bob Jr. I still have an ownership connection with the company, but I am available as a consultant, but I'm fully retired, and I have to say he does a wonderful job. He lives in Woodstown and has 3 very, very nice children and a wife, and
it's great you're going to keep it in the family with your grandson coming back.
Yeah, 2 grandsons actually, because I have another grandson who's his other son is a senior at Woodstown High School, and he's planning also to come back in the company. He's right now searching for, he's trying to decide which college to go to, but he's going to major in business with the idea of coming back and joining the company as the sixth generation.
Fantastic. You were instrumental during your tenure with the company, expanding it, right? My understanding is that you began the company's natural gas operations. You were involved in changing the name to Woodruff Energy, adding propane, and really updating the website. Can you speak a little bit about that and what you see as the future of energy sources in our area?
Sure. Well, the company sold coal for much of the first two generations, and then my dad got involved with selling heating oil in the early 1930s, and expanded heating and coal for a long time. After I came back, after graduating from the University of Delaware in 1958, I got involved, and then after my father died, we expanded the company by, we were purchasing other fuel dealers in the area. We eventually ended up buying about 19 different companies and merging them into one, so that we cover a 3 or 4 county area with fuel oil. We found some opportunities later on to get into the marketing of natural gas, which turned out to be a very plus thing for us, and we market all over the state of New Jersey, from north to south, and it's a big part of our overall operation. We did get into propane about 7 or 8 years ago, and we've always been very much involved with heating and air conditioning, called HVAC. We do market a little bit of electricity as a middleman, you might say.
Mm-hmm.
Our whole thrust in business is always to be aware of what's coming next. And so rather than just saying with coal, we went to the oil, we got into farm products like marketing motor fuels, gasoline and diesel fuel, and then we, of course, moved in, as we say, propane and a lot of the heating. And it's been interesting because coal went out of operation in this area a number of years ago. And we always have our eye open to see if there's any other kind of energy that might be something we would want to get involved with. We don't know at this point what it might be, but could be hydrogen. We try to dipped our toes in a little bit with some solar energy, but that didn't work out so well. So we didn't like it there. But we always have an eye out to what's anything that can provide people energy. We'll be looking at in the future.
And you still service all around, not just South Jersey, but South Jersey and beyond.
For natural gas, we sell all over the whole state of New Jersey. For servicing people's homes, for heat, we do Cumberland, Salem, parts of Gloucester, and Atlantic County, basically that area. So, yep, that's our business.
And I also think it's neat that you're still over on Water Street.
We moved there in 1928, I think it was. Before that, we operated the coal business out of our family home out in there's a little community there called Woodruff, and at one time it had a post office. My grandfather, as a result of his investment in the railroad, became the first postmaster at a little town called Woodruff, followed by my grandmother, and that they were the postmaster and postmistress there until 1881 to 1944, and then the post office was closed and became a Bridgeton delivery area. But
where was that? Where was that located?
Well, it was located in our home, and one section of our house was the post office, and people would drive up every day and pick up their mail. We had a little room, cubicles for all the local people, and that's how they got their mail. Yep.
Get your mail and a cup of coffee, right?
Probably all of that. Yeah.
That's great, and I like hearing about that human connection, the interaction that they must have had, the conversations, to be a fly on the wall, right? Absolutely.
Yep. There was a lot of I'm sure a lot of good conversation. You know how farmers are when they get to they just keep chattering away.
Don't forget to subscribe and like the show on iTunes, Spotify, and anywhere you listen.